Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the blessing of coming together. We pray for your Holy Spirit's guidance and to keep us as we continue with this lesson is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Our topic of discussion, lifestyle assessment form. The lifestyle assessment form is a form which is given to individuals who would be consulted by one of our medical missionaries. It is pretty in-depth and detailed, but the objective is to simply get a broad idea of what the individual is currently doing so that we'd be better able to help. There is a statement I'd like to draw your attention to. It's taken from the book Consultation on Diets and Foods, page 25. When we think about praying for the sick, here's a very interesting statement. I saw that the reason why God did not hear the prayers of the saints more fully was he could not be glorified in doing so while violating the laws of health. And I also saw that he designated the what? The health reform and the health institute to prepare the way for the prayer of faith to be fully answered. Faith and good works should go hand in hand in relieving the afflicted among us and fit them to glorify God and be saved for the coming of Christ. And so here the prayers of the saints were offered, but because they were violating the laws of health, it could not be, God's name could not have been glorified, and so he did not hear their prayers more fully, and so they were robbed, or rather, they robbed themselves of the great blessing that awaited them. And therefore you are encouraged that when you pray, you got to act out that prayer. Act as if you are going to be well. And you do all that which you can do for yourself in faith, believing that God is going to do his part to bring about the healing. So in our forum, there is this important section that we like individuals to complete, and it simply says that the health information received during this consultation is for general education and is not intended to be specific medical advice. No medical care, no diagnosis or treatment is provided during this consultation. It is advisable to consult with one's personal health care provider before implementing any lifestyle changes. I release natural healing through the laws of health, lifestyle counselors, or associated organizations from any and all liability. Participation in this consultation indicates acceptance of these terms. And so as you share natural remedies, we don't really call them treatment. Legally, they're not treatment. They are alternatives and natural remedies that are being shared. And no diagnosis can be given by any medical missionary. Even if the symptoms appear to look like something that you know a disease to be, but you don't have the authority to diagnose anyone. And certain tests need to be conducted, blood work needs to be done, and a physician is the one who can diagnose. And so we ask individuals to sign off on the statement, and it's very important too that they understand what they're signing, to take their time and read. We also do encourage individuals whom we're consulting that they can take this information which is shared with them back to their physician and work along with their physician towards getting better healing. So the general information that we would require comes in the form of like your name, the address, your phone numbers, and your email address. Email addresses are quite helpful because individuals, their phone may crash, they may change their phone, change location, but the email addresses are pretty much constant. But you take whatever you get, but at least you must have some record of individuals. There's one important thing to note up front, is that lifestyle assessment completed forms, they are confidential. And that conversation that you're having with an individual, it is confidential. These forms, when the individual fills it out about themselves, they would usually, you give them something else for them to go away with, another form, which is the healthy plan, and that they go away with. But what it means with you is their data, and that you can see, which you can refer to help them later on as they come back to you, for further advice, and you're able to review their notes and see what it is you gave to them on a particular time in which you met. But the form is confidential, so don't have it laying around your property so that anybody can pick it up and read. Treat it as confidential. It is something to be kept safe, and after a while, after you've worked with the individual and they've sort of, gotten the blessing of healing and moved on the way, you ought to destroy it, especially in a world we live in where there's lots of data protection laws. You need to destroy that document and not hold it or use that information for any other purpose but the consultation. And that's quite important. You're not supposed to share that information to be used for any other purpose, so bear that in mind. One of the questions that would come up in the form is what church affiliation, and why do we want to know this? It gives us a perspective on the individual's religious background. Say, for example, if the individual is a Muslim, you know that their belief speaks to not using pork, and by the time you're sharing with them, no pork, they'd be like, from looking at them, to know what religion they are, that, okay, they're not going to have any problems with that. If it's a Seventh-day Adventist, you could make reference to them, that you should be, as being a Seventh-day Adventist, it's this normal requirement or expectation that you believe in the prophetic writings as given to the prophetess of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Ellen G. White. And so you can make reference to some of the writings that you'd want to help the individuals with. But at the same time, certain health books like Counsels and Diets and Foods, Ministry of Healing, and so forth, contains some tremendous information that is valuable to everyone, no matter what religion you are. And you can take the messages or the quotations from those books and share. We found that the chapter Mind Cure in the book Ministry of Healing is quite helpful when you're working with someone who has mental issues, mental conditions, depression. If they were to read that chapter and apply the information, it's going to help them tremendously. So how long have you been a member? How would you change your consultation when you're dealing with a new Adventist? So in dealing with a new Adventist, you would be looking at, that they may still have certain habits to drop off. They may not be aware of certain things. So there are individuals who are not aware that they should not be drinking coffee and tea, though they are baptized Seventh-day Adventists. So you would take your time to share and explain that to them. So when we ask individuals to list their health concerns, we do look for, the health issues that they have, and here's a spot where they can write it down. So they may write a couple. You focus on those and you don't go on to, other kinds of issues. Just stick with what they've written, and that's going to help you. When lost, did you consult a physician? If individuals write that they have consulted a physician 24 months and beyond, yet they live with a chronic pain or a chronic limp, you know, why? And that to me and to you should indicate that the individual, really, haven't been paying much attention to their health, and but you would then seek to encourage them, to be more conscious, careful as they go forward. And the diagnosis that they've come to you with may not be also recent. So you'd really want to get them within a health facility to be able to get some tests done and an update on their particular status. If individuals had surgeries before, you would want to know this. So, for example, if somebody had the gallbladder, removed, then you know that that person would have a hard time in digesting fats and oils, because the gallbladder actually holds bile to be released into the intestines to help with the breaking down of fats and oils. The body will seek to compensate for that missing gallbladder by creating maybe another little pouch, or the pancreas producing some more, sort of enzymes for that. But they may have some challenges, so it's just something to be mindful of. Another example is if someone removed their tonsils or appendix, then you know that that person is going to not be able to produce B12, and so B12 would be part of the supplements that you would recommend. And so it's having that surgical history can be important. If a woman removes her womb, then she will have hormonal issues from an early start, as if she was menopausal, and that you would be dealing with. Now, a lot of times individuals question about B12. Where would you get B12 from if you're not eating flesh? Well, where did the flesh get its B12 from? Where did the beef or the chicken, where did they get the B12 from? They created it, okay? So we're a living organism, and we can create our own B12. The thing is, it is quite important for the normal functioning of our brain, for our nervous system, for our blood, but we do produce it. It's, in our grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables. They contain all the food elements that we need, and they are necessary to make good blood. This a flesh diet cannot do. And the Lord has intention to bring his people back to the simple fruits, the vegetables, and the grains. But when you think about B12, one of the things is that individuals look for B12 in large amounts. We actually need only 2 micrograms to 2.5 micrograms of B12 on a daily basis. And so 1 teaspoon of a B12 would be enough to meet the needs of 100 people for their entire lives. Researchers are not finding any plant food with large amounts of B12, so they're like shouting, oh, you can't get adequate amounts of B12 in the plant and vegetable world. But as a human being, for supplemental or even from our foods, we don't need large amounts. Just a minute amount, that as tiny as a pinhead, is what you need. So it's a lot, by taking these high doses of B12, sometimes it can be really too much on the body, especially if you're making already and then you're supplementing. So we can get it from the plants if we eat the plants. In addition, the body actually produces all the B12 that we need it's manufactured in the gut, in your intestines, and it is deposited in the mouth at night. While you sleep, it comes up and it's there in the mouth. That's why when you wake up in the morning, you don't shake your mouth with water. First thing, shake your mouth with water and spit out. No. You take your water, have it by your bedside, and you drink water. And as you drink, the B12 in your mouth is going to go back in and recycle. So the B12 is, special because the body can store it for up to 20 years in the liver. So being on a B12 supplement for a continuous period of time, unless you're not making it for some reason, but as long as you're making B12, you don't necessarily have to supplement with it, or even if you do, it's going to be at a low dosage. If you are deficient in B12 because you do have B12 anemia, then you can also have nervous disorders, difficulty of absorption of B12 in the intestinal tract for your body to actually absorb it to be distributed in your blood. You can find that you experience numbness or tingling in the arms and legs, weakness, or a loss of balance. And those are some of the B12 deficiency symptoms. Now, how can B12 be destroyed? Because though we can make it, we can also destroy that B12 which we make, or prevent the making of it. So drinking alcohol, for example, kills bacteria, and it also kills the bacteria B12. And then eating and drinking together, or eating in between meals, produces acid in the stomach and destroys B12 bacteria. You also have vinegar, that which you can find in ketchup and mayonnaise, that would kill B12. So another reason why it is we say to individuals do not use apple cider vinegar or basmati vinegar is because it can kill your B12 bacteria. And then you develop all these symptoms. You'll feel weakness, you feel tingling in your hands and extremities and so forth, and you're anemic if it is that you're ingesting vinegar. If you're using ketchup, mayonnaise, salad dressings with vinegar in it, it can cause B12 deficiency. And apple cider vinegar is prime in that too. So what is another destroyer? Baking powder. If found in our pastries, it can cause the pH, listen to this, the baking powder, baking soda in your food, in your bake, in your bread, in your bakery items. That baking powder can cause the pH in your stomach to remain high, not allowing the stomach to be acidic enough to break down foods, particularly protein. And so that protein, if it is not broken down, which is when it is, it interacts in the body in a process you call the intrinsic factor that is required for the absorption of B12. So that protein is important for it to be broken down, and by use of baking powder, baking soda, you prevent your protein in your peas and beans that you're eating from breaking down adequately and thereby causing B12 deficiencies. Another thing that would keep the pH high is drinking alkaline water. So hence the reason we look for pure soft water, water that is not alkaline in nature, and that's going to help. So imagine someone who is drinking alkaline water being B12 deficient. Correct that and you're able to keep your B12. Another important point is that of Listerine. A lot of folks like to wash their mouth with Listerine. That kills 99.99% bacteria that will destroy B12 in the body. And Listerine actually contains 26.6% of alcohol, and alcohol destroys bacteria. It's interesting to note that a Swiss researcher, Dr. A. Mustafa, found B12 in soybean, barley, spinach, and that when they're grown organically, the amount of B12 was significantly higher. Berlina is also an excellent sea vegetable that contains B12. And nutritional yeast, some of them do have within them B12. You read the label and see if it has B12 in it. And if you were to take a supplemental amount, it can be as little as 10 micrograms per day. 10 micrograms per day. So what diseases have you been diagnosed with? So first we had a question about diseases or health issues that they are concerned about. We also asked this question, what diseases have you been diagnosed with? And so when they give the particular disease, it may be one that you are familiar, or if not, then go on ahead and research it. As a medical missionary, you research the particular disease, find out what it is all about, and study it, and then you're able to give some sound advice. But basically, without even knowing too much about the disease just yet, stick with the 8 laws of health until you've had a chance to do so, so you can break up your consultation and meet the person at the follow-up time. But stick with the 8 laws of health, and that there is a good start. You also want to find out if the person is on any medication, what they're doing. Now, there are a list of symptoms that are manifested in the body, and on the form you do have these lists where we would ask them to make a circle on the line or tick off which of these symptoms that they are currently experiencing. You find that symptoms can be correlated to a particular condition, and so dizziness, their blood count is low, then it would be, you see dizziness, you know that is consistent with their blood count. They may be on certain medication and they are experiencing acid reflux because they're using aspirin. You would be able to point out your symptom, your acid reflux situation is as a result of you using aspirin. And as long as you are on that aspirin, you will continue to have your acid reflux situation because it's destroying your stomach, causing the stomach to bleed. So that's what you're looking for when you go through these symptoms. Do you suffer from any of the following emotional mental disorders? And here you have a range of mental disorders that individuals may be experiencing, and they are quite interesting. Depression, and what is depression? So for our students, you have to go through each of these specific mental issues and know something about them. It's a depressive disorder. It is a syndrome that reflects a sad or irritable mood, exceeding normal sadness or grief. You know, so you find that persons would want to stay to themselves, have the room dark, not want to go out much, not want to interact with individuals much. Those are signs of depression. Chronic anxiety is another mental condition. You have generalized anxiety disorder where everything the folks are, you know, very particular about and pretty much anxious. Bipolar, it's called manic depression. It's a form of mental illness. Usually when you're working with somebody who has bipolar, you're caught to break up your consultations. these mental issues, you don't do a consult all in one go. You have to break it up, because one, they cannot appreciate the the length of time that you might want to sit with them. They cannot appreciate the volume of information that you would want to share at one go. So you break up your consults with them and try to keep things as simple, really, really simple. Even if it means just working with the 8 laws of health for a while, and then you build and you grow and you keep adding as you go along. But one of the things that I tell you is that you need to be quite simple in sharing and even in what you administer. Codependency is another behavior or habit that is destructive. Manias. So here you're simply looking at these definitions. It's an abnormal elevated mood, and so you have specific symptoms to match that. Schizophrenia, it can be chronic, can be severe or debilitating, and where folks just can't function or be themselves anymore. So these are pretty much some serious conditions that would require good hands-on care. Stick with the 8 laws of health, and then you can always research or check with us and find out what else you can do to help these folks. But these are some of the mental issues that you would see. Phobias, obsessive compulsive disorder, and you can probably recognize that throughout your discussion with them, some of these kinds of behaviors are manifested, and you just have to have a lot of patience with the folks. They may question you, ask you certain things over, keep knocking at your door even after you're done helping them. So you do need to go and fill out those definitions. So in the consult, you ask what you would like us to address, what issues, and if the understand that there are lots of times when folks would put things on the paper. You see, for a third time, once you ask what health issues and health concerns you have, then we ask what you're diagnosed with, and here we come back again and we ask what is the specific condition that you want your help with in this consult. And it's just a draw. Is it from the individuals? Is it the same condition that they're writing each time the question is given, or do they add something more? Understand too that a lot of times individuals do not tell you everything, and it's important for them to tell you everything. What their health challenges are, what they've been diagnosed with, what prior history in terms of medical attention that they've received or medical advice that they've received. It's important for them to tell you everything, because if they don't, they're holding back on you being able to help them properly. And so you need to know, and so you question and you try and draw some more details from folks. We have a question about marital status. What about if somebody's been married 3 times? You can pretty much, and the spouses didn't really die. That can be an indicator that the person is unstable unless they've changed their ways by God's help. That they may just have a bout of bad marriages, and there may be some issues with them. It can also be a spiritual connection. You find a lot of times too that by looking at the marital status, you find out that people are unequally yoked, and that such conditions can lead to sickness. You do have a lot of stress in those relationships, and one partner being spiritually minded and wanting to train up the child in the way he should go, and the other has different interests. So there can be conflict in the mind, conflict spiritually, and that can affect the individual. They could be stressed, and that can affect them with their health issues. What about weight? So the person you're consulting, say for example, a woman who is 5 feet 4 inches and weighs 210 pounds, what would be her ideal weight or range, or the average? So in this particular case of 5 feet 4, that person being 210 pounds is actually overweight. So here's what we do. Say for example, you have, for men, it varies, the ideal weight varies between a man and a woman. So for men, you would allow your man 100 pounds. And then if you're 5 feet, that is equated to 100 pounds. And for every additional inch up the charge, you actually allocate to that person 6 pounds. So if you're 5 feet 2, that means you're 100 plus 6 multiplied by 2, 12. So 112 would be your ideal weight. If you're, depending for a woman now, if you're 100, you would allow 106 points for that 5-foot individual. And so for each additional inch, you add 5 points, 5 pounds. So for a woman who is 5 feet 4, same like the man, this time you have 106 pounds for that 5 feet, but for each additional inch, you go up by 5 pounds, and so you can come up with 126 pounds, which would be the ideal weight for someone of 5 feet 4 inches. Sedimentation rate. Here you have, it's where blood is drawn and put in a vial, and it's tested to see how quickly that blood would settle out in the tube under standardized conditions. And a high rate indicates the presence of inflammation in the blood. So if the blood is settled slowly, then you have the sedimentation rate, which should be lower. But if depending on how the blood flows, and that sedimentation rate reads high, it tells us that the individual has a lot of inflammation within the body. And this is a test that's usually used to identify persons with arthritis and to measure the amount of inflammation they have within them. So someone with multiple sclerosis, if they were to do the SED rate, you'd find that inflammation load is pretty high. Oops. Men, your SED rate should be between 0 and 15, and women, the SED rate should be between 0 and 20. And be cautious with higher rates, as it indicates inflammation in the body. Blood pressure. It's defined as the pressure exerted by the blood against the walls of the blood vessels, especially in the arteries. It varies with the strength and the beat of the heart, and the blood flow and so forth, their age, the person's health, their physical condition. So we want to know the blood pressure reading. Ideally, the blood pressure should be less than 120/80, and anything over this, a diagnosis can take place. It is linked to either pre or stage 1 or stage 2 hypertension. Someone has a blood pressure of 130/80, you would say that the 80 may sound pretty good, even though it should be less than 80. But this number, the systolic, being high of 130, that actually triggers some concern. And we want that to be less than 120/80. Glucose, it's that sugar within the blood that's stored within the liver that is produced and gives us energy. Glucose readings should range between 65 to 99 milligrams per deciliter. And that is a fasting, an 8-hour fasting measure of your blood sugar. But for postprandial test, which is 2 hours after eating a meal, you can draw blood and do a diabetes test at that time. And if you do not have diabetes, you find that 2 hours after your meal, your blood sugar level will be at less than 140 milligrams per deciliter. But if you were to measure someone's blood for sugar, for glucose, 2 hours after their meal, that individual will have, and if the person do have diabetes, then their reading 2 hours later should be less than 160 milligrams. The point here is that if it is higher than these values, no diabetes, looking for less than 140. You have diabetes, you're looking for it to be looking for it to be less than 160 if you do already have sugar running in the blood. But anything higher than that, you would be concerned and help them to bring it down. So take note of this, because if folks see their numbers high, more than 99, and they get worried, what's happening with my sugar? Did you eat something? Yeah? Well, then that can contribute. So let's wait a while and see. If someone's fasting blood sugar is 45 milligrams per deciliter, would that concern you, and what would you do? The person's blood sugar level is too low, so let the person eat a fruit. 45 milligrams per deciliter, you're running into problems as you take that sugar test, that glucose test. Let the person eat a fruit, too low. And, so anything less than 65 we need to be concerned about. So cholesterol, you want to ask this question, is on the sheet, about what is your cholesterol level. If someone has LDL of 100 and HDL of 80, what does it tell you? Now recognize that we have LDL and we have HDL. Some people refer to it as the good and the bad. For us, there's nothing like bad cholesterol, because God made all things good. And HDL and LDL will exist within the human body, and it need not be, and it is not bad, but what is bad is when the numbers are not where they should be, where you find that the LDL is elevated. We rather want the HDL to be elevated. It is a protein that actually carries cholesterol in the blood. So we do need cholesterol, and we do need cholesterol for different functions in the body, but we cannot have the HDL being too low. So it needs to be at the right level. Let's have a look. For males, HDL, for you to be heart protective, it should be 75 milligrams per deciliter and above. For 50, that HDL needs, for women, females, the HDL needs to be 50 milligrams per deciliter and above. And, that's the HDL. We're looking for higher numbers. The LDL is also a lipoprotein that transports cholesterol in the blood. We really want LDL to be low. If the LDL is high, you are at risk for heart disease. So for male and female, we want that LDL to be less than 130 milligrams per deciliter. For optimal health, LDL should be less than 90 milligrams per deciliter. Once the LDL gets above 180, it tells us, watch out, your cholesterol levels very well could be adhering or sticking to the walls of your arteries, growing within the walls of your arteries, and causing the blood vessels or the arteries to be narrowed. If you're in a consultation, when somebody asks you, how can I lower my cholesterol levels? There's certain guidelines. Know right from the get-go that you'd want a person to stay away from all flesh and their byproducts in terms of foods, to reduce the amount of fats and oils, even from the healthy nuts or olive oil or coconut oil. We want them to reduce those, their use of it. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to reversing cholesterol, high cholesterol levels, high blood sugar levels, high blood pressure, it's better for individuals not to use oil, the concentrated fats at that time. We ask them to reduce stress in their life, which is correlated to high cholesterol levels. And we ask them to walk 60 minutes a day, get sufficient sunlight, and those are going to help them to reduce the cholesterol. Triglycerides. Under what level should the triglycerides be? It is triglyceride. It is one of those fatty acids within the blood, and it converts excess calories within the blood taken from sugar or alcohol into triglycerides. So it's a type of fat that is carried in the blood and stored in fat cells throughout the body. So you find that if you use sugar, if you use alcohol, if you use processed food that converts into sugar, processed grains, white rice, white flour, those foods can elevate triglyceride levels. But triglyceride is also part of your blood work, and so you do need to see that less than 150 milligrams per deciliter. The pulse rate, here you have different rates for individuals. So for a baby, say example, a baby's rate would be faster than that of a matured adult. So a baby's heart rate can range anywhere between 100 to 160 beats per minute. If the child is between 1 year to 10 years old, that heartbeat can be 60 to 140 beats per minute. And then you're looking at maturity from age 11 on to maturity, the heart rate should be between 60 to 100 beats per minute. So question, in an adult, what should that heart rate be, that pulse rate? It should be anywhere between 60 to 100 beats per minute. And you can measure this, at certain points. You have on the side of your neck and jaw as a place where you can put and feel. You have by your wrist, which is those arteries there that really gives an indicator of the heart rate. In your groin is another point that you can feel, but you would not go feeling that in a consult. You do that for yourself, and you can also check, just above the elbow on the other side. There's a good place you can also look at too, and that's where the blood pressure is checked, and you listen using a stethoscope. So please list all medicines or pills that you are currently taking. Do pay attention to this, because individuals, as they use specific medication, you see what they are already on. If somebody is on blood thinning medication and you advise for garlic tablets, you do extend and share with them that you need to be cautious by the use of these garlic tablets if while you are on the medication. So if somebody's already on blood thinning medication, but they need to use turmeric, then the dosage may be less until they wean them, the physician is able to take them away from the blood thinning medication. Then you can review, what it is you've shared with them. But get this the meds. And then what I'd like you to do is to go to the website WebMD and actually research, type in the particular drug medication, and then ask about the side effects, and you look and see the side effects of the drug medication. So, for example, Lipitor is one that's given for lowering, as a cholesterol lowering medication. And in that Lipitor, you do have issues where the muscles are affected with individuals on long-term use of that. And so you can see a correlation between the symptoms that the person is experiencing, a direct link with the medication that they are on. And you'll be able to share with them, look, you're using this medication, here are the side effects. See, they're playing out in you. What do you think? And so many times, you can see that direct correlation. And it is even not just symptoms. You have disease that's brought upon the body by the use of poisonous medicines. And this we need to educate people about. What if someone should take, what if someone asks you whether they should take their medicines that were prescribed by their doctor? So they say, tell me, you've given me all this advice about natural alternatives. Should I stop my medication? Well, number one, we do not take people off their medication because we did not put them on their medication in the first place. So that's why they need to go back to their physician and have that conversation. I'd like to use natural remedies. These are my alternatives here. How would you help me to do this? And so leave that for the individual to tend to the physician, to their primary healthcare provider who put them on the meds, to be able to take them off the meds. So their doctor would be able to do that. Now, supplements and herbs that individuals are taking, when someone comes to you and they are on many supplements, and yet they do not know if they're even deficient in these particular situations, what advice would you give them? First, folks, we need to understand that over-supplementation lowers the body's immune system. And say men who take supplements have a higher incidence of prostate cancer. And, by taking these high dosage of various supplements lowers the immune system. And so persons, they can be they need to have a test done to check their nutrient levels before really taking these supplements. And try and make food your medicine. Consume whole foods and let the food build up the body. Plants can die from too much nutrients, so can the body. So you don't want over-supplementation. When it comes to natural remedies, there are some supplements that we recommend. They're herbs, and they work mildly on the body, yet being very effective. So we don't want over-supplementation. And sometimes somebody may be on too many. You can share with them, let's back away from this. How long have you been using it? Even when folks come to the health food store that we work at, and they're coming to get supplements, if they come repeatedly too many times, we'd say, okay, time, take a break. because we don't want you to be using supplements forever. It's to be used for purpose, and then you take a break. You can't be hitting the body with this potent form of supplements. Here's a chart, Family Medical Guide, Volume 1, that actually tells us, look at the rat, for example, in this study, it showed the growth of rats on poor, good, or supplemented diets. So looking at the weight, and horizontally we're looking at the growth. So the poor diet, you had very little increase in weight. Poor diet and supplementation, a small increase in weight. What about giving a good diet and supplements? You have increased weight. But what about even better, just having a good diet, no supplements? The growth and the weight went up with the experiment here. So it shows that we do better on having a good diet. A study done in 2011 by our Iowa Women's Health study that was done, they found that women aged 55 to 69 who took multivitamins, including and also B6 and folic, as well as minerals, iron, magnesium, zinc, and copper, increased their risk for death. So not only sickness, but their risk for death. Okay, so those are some of the basic data that we have gathered about the individual, and so if it is that if it is that you gather such details, then that's good. So the next point next step is that you want to be able to help the person to improve on the laws of health and applying the laws of health to their body. So at this point, you take them through the 8 laws of health, and we look at the pure air. Where do you live? Where someone lives could affect their health. For example, if they live in areas that's low, damp, it could result in sore throat, fevers, and lung diseases. If they live in high levels that has smog, so an area that has high levels of smog, has high levels of pollution, it can increase strokes, liver disease, lung cancer can be increased in some of these cities where you have high pollution. And so you choose high elevated areas to live where the air is light, and you choose a place where there are trees and nature around for the children to play, for you to be able to exercise and get some better fresh air and sunshine to clear the mind. Do you sleep with your windows open? Why is this important? Pure air at night keeps the cells oxygenated, and oxygenated cells help with cellular repair. So when our cells are being repaired at night, if you are inhaling oxygen rather than in a closed room where you have more carbon dioxide because you're exhaling but no fresh air is coming in, then you find that the person wakes up the next morning feeling more fatigued, hungry, because you have air hunger. And air hunger comes about when you are inhaling too much carbon dioxide. And then you find that the person is sluggish, you have slow blood circulation, the brain can be foggy. You can even experience some dizziness. Check the air quality in the home. Look to see whether the person is opening their windows at least an inch. Let some air come in. Get mesh in your windows to keep the mosquitoes out. But even if it's one window, invest and get one window, but that's which you can have open and let the air come in. So another question is, do you open your windows daily, or, to let air and exchange of air take place in the home? So you have pure air, promotes blood circulation, it refreshes the body. These are some benefits. It calms the nerves. It gives good appetite and digestion. It induces sound sleep. I tell you, if you begin to open your window and allow some fresh air to come in at night while you sleep, you would experience sound sleep. It's a deeper sleep as compared to if that window is closed. Just try it, and you would recognize it's so beneficial. So if you want to improve your blood circulation, get pure air. You want to feel rejuvenated, get out in the pure air. And we say pure because not polluted air. So another question is, do you live or work in a smoke-filled environment? If someone lives in a smoke-filled environment, that air laden with smoke and dust, with poisonous gases and germs of disease, is perilous to life. And so you know about second-hand smoke and third-hand smoke. Second-hand, when you get that puff in your face, but you're not the one with the cigarette. And third-hand smoke is where whatever the nicotine hand touches or sits upon, then that you can pick up within your pores when you go to sit in that area. Do you have plants throughout your home? Plants are quite helpful. They help to purify the air quality, and so you have like the peace lily, the gum cane, and so forth. Are there any environments that you are in that do not have a good supply of fresh air? What are some of the diseases? So as you mentioned, lung disease, liver disease, rheumatism. If you don't have fresh air, that can be a problem. Neuralgia, pain throughout the body. What about the air quality? Sinusitis, or, the air can just make you feel so congested. And from the time you get out into the more pure air, then you feel relief. Sore throat, fevers, headaches, all those are symptoms of poor air. Do you wear tight-fitted clothing that restricts your lung expansion, such as girdles, belts, corsets, tight bands, tight belts, tight pants? Those, it's like a woman who want to wear these tight pants that skin fit. You have to really wiggle your way in there, or even if you did not, when you sit, it's tight against your leg. You can cause poor blood circulation in your legs. You can also, find that by the crotch area, if it's tight and snug, bacteria growth and so forth can be amplified because there's no air passing through there. So wear clothes that's more loose-fitted, than loose about the body than tight and fitted. So our lungs are constantly throwing off impurities, and they need to be constantly supplied with fresh air. Impure air does not afford the necessary supply of oxygen, and the blood passes to the brain and other organs without being vitalized. Hence, the necessity of thorough ventilation to live. And a lot of times, we find that the homes today do not have the fancy blocks or these little ventilation blocks. And so you close the window and there's no air coming into the room. To live in closed, ill-ventilated rooms where the air is dead and vitiated weakens the entire system. It becomes particularly sensitive to the influence of cold, and a slight exposure increases disease. It is close confined indoors that makes a woman pale and feeble. They breathe the same air over and over until it becomes laden with poisonous matter thrown off through the lungs and pores, and impurities are thus conveyed back to the blood. So when you have ill-ventilated room, the air inside of there is stagnant. It does not move. And if you were to put, a puff of powder or what would be even lighter, like smoke, you would just, or dust, you would see it just hanging there in midair, going nowhere, and that is what happens, that holds disease or any impurities, and then you inhale it. So sunlight is another law of health that when you're consulting, you need to share. Individuals, you have health issues, sunlight is important. So how much sunlight do I need? How much sunlight do you get per day is a question. And folks will say enough. And when you question them, how much did you get yesterday? They will say, well, I got plenty. How did you get plenty? Because I walk from taxi to office, or I'm in and out, walking about. And that's not enough. And what time are you talking about? So for lighter-skinned individuals, they would need 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight exposure per day. Darker individuals need 6 times more. Therefore, 45 minutes to an hour and a half of sunlight exposure daily. And between the hours of 9 and 3, 10 and 3, depending on where in the world you are, that you would need that core time of the day to get your sunlight. If you're lighter complected, the sunlight can penetrate through your skin quicker than someone who has a lot more melanin protecting them. The sunlight actually, they need to sit more within the sun. Sit in the sun, walk in the sun, do your gardening while in the sun, but get the sun. If you are deficient in sunlight hormone called vitamin D, then you will experience so many diseases, hundreds of them. Some of them are rickets, bow legs, or knock-me. Vitamin D is a hormone, and every cell in our body has a receptor site for vitamin D. Sunlight is important for growth and development of body and mind. It regulates blood cells. It modifies the work of the kidneys. When the sun hits the skin, it helps to lower cholesterol. That's right under the skin. It utilizes it to make, to move about in the body and to make vitamin D. In order for calcium to be absorbed, you need vitamin D and protein. So if your vitamin D level is less than 30 nanograms per deciliter, you find that calcium would not be absorbed. So vitamin D low, calcium would not be absorbed, because in order for it to be absorbed, you need vitamin D, and you also need protein, adequate amount of protein in your diet for the absorption of calcium. Now, calcium helps to facilitate healthy bones, but if you're deficient in vitamin D, then you can be deficient in calcium, and so your bones can be affected. Acid reflux or indigestion can cause calcium loss because the acid actually works against the bone structures and reduce calcium within your body that's needed to help build health, strong bones and teeth, and at the same time it wears away at those structures trying to fill the blood with calcium. If it's not getting it in the diet, it will pull from your bones and your teeth. Do you sunbathe? On what time of day do you recommend sunbathing? The best time is between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2, when the UVB rays is at its best. When you stand out into the sun, the closer the sunlight is to you, the quicker and more vitamin D that you would be able to make. Do you wear short sleeves? How can wearing the short sleeves cause health problems? So when you go out into the sun, it is best to protect your body by wearing long sleeves. And you would be cooler. Question: would you be cooler under a shady tree or just out in the open sunlight? So folks would say, you'd be cooler under a shady tree. That sounds pretty logical. So the clothing acts like a shady tree. If you look at individuals who work in the sun, you would see the smart ones having some long sleeves to protect their skin. They don't want it to get dark, because the more you expose yourself to the sunlight, you make melanin. It's produced. You see suntan, that's a higher production of melanin to help protect the skin. So you cover your skin, but the material needs to be important. So you use like cotton, linen material to cover your skin. So you're kept cool though you are in the sunlight. And so if you're wearing short sleeves, the problem here is that you need longer sleeves, especially when going out into the sunlight. You need longer sleeves in your clothing to be able to help with proper blood circulation to your extremities, your arms and your legs. When the arms and legs are left bare, they become colder than the body. It causes the blood to stay in more in the central body or the trunk area, and excess blood in the head produces headaches. In the chest, it produces coughs and various types of discomfort in the intestinal tract, and inefficient cleaning of the blood in the kidneys and the nervous system, can be harmed as well. So we want to be able to wear clothing that is longer. Wearing long sleeves in summer and winter prevents the alarm reaction of the adrenal glands, which is responsible for producing different hormones that's needed by the body, and even we want to be able to, not have the body too exposed to cause this alarm reaction and chilling. The heart is forced back to work harder and try to circulate blood through the chilled limbs and deal with the excess blood in the central body and the brain, and heart disease results. People have been cured of heart disease simply by learning to dress their limbs warmly. So you see, you keep cool by wearing cotton. I know of a particular building contractor who would wear short pants sometimes, and then or short sleeves, and recognize, wow, the sun is burning so much these days when you're out there for an extended period of time. And this person actually went on to make a change in their garment to wear a longer pants, proper shoes, and then to wear a cotton piece, long cotton shirt with a hoodie on it, and then so the person put it over, the hoodie on over their head, and said, when he dresses like that, he feels so cool, and he can be all day out in the sun working, but feels so cool. So it makes a difference. The cotton actually absorbs the perspiration, and it's kept off your body. So other breathable material that would aid, so you have linen, bamboo, and silk or wool. If you're in the winter, wool is quite breathable. Do not use polyesters, rayons, those synthetic fibers. They tend to keep the body hot. Do you use sunblock? If someone uses sunblock, then they would actually be preventing that sun from penetrating their skin and helping them to make vitamin D. So if individuals are using sunblock, then that could be a problem. Do you have abnormal sensitivity to the sun? It may be due to medication that they are on. Dilantin, for example, is one medication that would cause you to be sun sensitive. Again, look up the side effects of these drug medications and to see whether the person can just put themselves out in the sun. If you are sun sensitive, then we would suggest that you supplement with vitamin D, because you're not getting the vitamin D because you're not out into the sun, you're not making it. Another thing too is that individuals, because they're not accustomed to going out into the sun, that say for a darker skinned individual, we would say don't hit with the 45 minutes first day. You know, you can work your way up. You go out there for 15 minutes, 1 week. And then the next week you go out there for 20 minutes for the entire week. And then the following week you go out and you spend 25, and you keep building as time progresses until you're able to stay out into the sun longer without getting any reactions of sensitivity. And, you know, it's because individuals sometimes too are vitamin D deficient that they are sun sensitive. So if we were to build up their vitamin D and then put them out into the sun, they do phenomenal, way better. Do you take vitamin D supplements? If the answer is yes, then the vitamin D supplement may be required in cases where the person is low or treating disease. You do need vitamin D as a supplement, but that's what we want to encourage, that they do have it. For optimal levels, vitamin D is anywhere between 40 or better 70 for optimal level. That figure has been revised to be 70 nanograms per milliliter to 100 nanograms per milliliter. Those supplements are available. It is always better to get the sunlight. What the sunlight can do for the body, vitamin D cannot do in the capsule form. So we are meant to take our sunshine hormone being out into the sun. Do you have any family history of skin cancer? If the person says no, then okay, because note that when it comes to skin cancer, genetics play a part. So the next area on law of health is on temperance. What is your current job occupation? Why do we ask this? The job may be too stressful and prevent the individual from complying with the 8 laws of health, and so they have situation. So for somebody who says, well, I have high blood pressure, and you watch that person's life and how they're going busy, and not taking any time to relax. They talk fast, eat fast, work fast, walk fast. You know, they can get confused at times because they're moving so fast. Calm down. You're raising your blood pressure logically. Your adrenal gland has to be shooting off, you know, certain hormones, and those things can elevate your blood pressure. So you need to make changes, but your job might be stressed. And so that's just one example in which you see that the occupation, it correlates with the disease, and as well as folks would not have time to practice the 8 laws of health if they're so stressed and busy. Yes, it is important for them to stop and attend to those things. So what about there's a question on the last 5 jobs and the years of service. So we asked this question to see what the person was doing in the last 5 to 10 years, and how might it be connected with what they are experiencing today. We find this a lot with individuals who work in the healthcare profession, or individuals who work in night shifts, or late at night, taxi drivers, or you know, folks who work at in the hospitals or in hotels or at the airport, and they're working all these shifts, and lots of times it's connected with heart disease. As soon as they start to work the night shift, the blood pressure came up. Soon as they started to work, go to bed late at night, allergies started to trigger, because that's what happens. You do spend, those, so your job. So you look at the job, their role, and see how it might contribute to their particular condition, simply to identify what the cause is. Disease never comes without a cause. So we want to be able to help identify the cause and then intelligently go to remove that cause so that health can be restored to the body. Do you smoke or use tobacco products in any form? We usually ask this and show how tobacco smoking can harm their health and contribute to disease and sickness. Do you use tobacco in the past? Whether they did that, and how long does it take for nicotine to get out of the system? 3 to 4 days after quitting, nicotine can be removed, and the more you stay away from the cigarette itself, your blood is beginning to be cleansed and free from it. However, you will need to eliminate at the same time other stimulating foods in the diet. It's easier for the cravings to stop after the days has passed, the time has passed, you wash the clothing and so forth, so that you don't get the urge to go back to smoke. And those are some of the pointers that can be helpful to individuals if they did use tobacco in the past. So you find that they would be more fatigued, their lungs could be affected, and they can have like a chronic cough, a smoker's cough. And because of the status of their lungs, it can take a longer time for healing. And if there's damage done, then that can be problematic. What about the use of alcohol in any form? If folks say, well, I use a little alcohol for health reasons, for the stomach's sake, it is true that wine contains various protective plant chemicals, but folks have also found that so it is true that wine contains various protective plant chemicals, but by the use of grape juice, you also get that added and that benefit as well. It's rich in phytochemicals that help in preventing heart disease and improving cholesterol levels, but get the benefit from the grape juice, not the wine. Do you ingest caffeine in any form? We want to advise that caffeine be eliminated from the diet. Caffeine is associated with lumps in the breast. And how do you prevent getting lumps in the breast? Remove caffeine from the diet. Green tea, chocolate, all caffeinated drinks and energy drinks and so forth, remove those things from the diet. They also cause nervous reaction. It's stimulating, it elevates the blood pressure. It's a stimulant. Caffeine may be used as a medicine, but not in the diet. Do you overeat? What effect does overeating have on the system? It taxes the stomach and makes it feverish. The brain nerve energy is benumbed and almost paralyzed by overeating. Overeating, even in the simplest of foods, it sort of numbs the sensitive nerves of the brain and weakens its vitality. Do you eat too fast? How can we slow down the time it takes for us to eat a meal? We need to chew our food slowly and thoroughly, as chunks of food in the stomach remaining there too long can cause indigestion, because when it comes to digestion, it's both chemical as well as mechanical. The mechanical part is what your teeth does, and the chemical part would be for all the gastric juices and various enzymes and so forth that helps in breaking down the food. If one eats too fast, then you find that they can have indigestion. Do you chew your food thoroughly? So you want individuals to chew your food so that you're swallowing it when it's liquid form. But adding liquids or using too many liquid meals is not the answer. Because as you chew, the enzymes are released in your mouth that helps in breaking down the food. We need food to be broken down in order for the blood to get nutrients from the particular food item. So soups and liquid foods can cause one to drink rather than eat. So what do you need to do with your soup? Make it thick, like a stew, and eat your soup, and you drink your solids, your solid food, because you chew it down so that it's broken down. But soft food does not require mastication, and so it's easier to swallow portions without chewing. So take your time. Even if the food is soft, you take your time and you mull it around, move it around in your mouth, so that rather than just swallowing so quickly. Do you snack between meals, and what does snacking do to the digestive system? It wears out the digestive system. The system takes about 4 hours to digest, and then it needs an hour or 2 of rest. And this is one reason why we do not support a diet of 5 to 6 meals throughout the day, because you find that the meals are coming in too close. And so it puts an extra load on the stomach, on your liver, to be able to digest this food. Even puts an extra load on your pancreas. So you want to space out your meals at least 5 hours apart, and so it gives us mainly like about 3 meals a day, not 4 or 5. So you can only afford like 3 meals a day. What about desserts that individuals may be eating? Some desserts could be unhealthy, cakes, pies, puddings, and pastries, and so forth. Recognize that these are loaded with milk and sugar combined. That's very poisonous to the body, to the blood. And, desserts, the individual might be overweight, and you cannot be using these large amounts of carbohydrates, refined foods, as well as the sugars in them. Do you eat at set meal times? So here, you want to be able to help the folks eat at set meal times, ideally spacing out the meals 5 to 6 hours or more, because if you eat in the evening, like between 6 and 6:30, you're going to not eat anything for about the next 12 hours. So, but space out during the day, space out your meals. The stomach must have careful attention. It must not be kept in continual operation. Give this misused and much abused organ some peace and quiet and rest. And after the stomach has done its work for one meal, do not crowd more work upon it before it has a chance to rest and before a sufficient supply of gastric juice is provided by nature to care for more food. 5 hours at least should lapse between each meal, and always bear in mind that if you give it a trial, you would find that 2 meals are better than 3. Regularity in eating is of vital importance, and there should be a specified time for each meal. At this time, let everyone eat what the system requires and take nothing more until the next meal. After the regular meal is eaten, the stomach should be allowed to rest for 5 hours, and not a particle of food should be introduced into the stomach until the next meal. In this interval, you allow the stomach to do its work before so it would be get some period of rest before the next meal comes. And in our presentation on menu planning and food combinations, you would see some more in-depth detail about planning this. For a third meal, evening meal, it should contain no salads, vegetables at night. So no vegetables at night, no oils or fats at the end of your supper meal. Your third meal, if taken at all, should be very light and food that's most easily digested. So crackers, English biscuits, or zwieback, which is bread baked twice, is suited and for evening meal. The drier your bread is, the easier it is for digestion. So students should prepare their third meal without vegetables, but use wholesome fruit, bread. Those are quite some examples of and suggestions for an evening meal. It is important to note that research shows that even that if one eats after 6:30 p.m., it stops the production of melatonin in the gut, and as a result, the body does not get restful sleep at night. So for your third meal evening, we would want that to be between the hours of 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and you would eat, and by 6:30 you stop, because you want to be able to have that hormone produced in the body. The meals should be 5 to 6 hours or more, at least 4 hours for digesting, and then an hour or two should be allowed, and that's the time frame in which we would eat. So we want to stop here, and we will continue tomorrow evening with the rest of this presentation. It is a pretty long one, but we will work our way through. So we would pause at this time. Let's pray to close the session. Heavenly Father, we thank you for what we were able to discuss, and we ask that it would lodge within our minds the information so that we'd be able to put it into good use, is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.